Hello, everyone. Welcome to Click Moments, where the right information at the right time is a portal from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm your host, Beth Orr, and today I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Kendra Cornwell, who is a dear friend of mine. And I want to tell you a little bit about what Kendra is going to be talking about, as well as how we met. But welcome, Kendra, to the show.
Thank you.
So Kendra is a nurse that actually worked throughout the entire pandemic. And she is a unicorn because she never actually got COVID. I hardly know anybody who didn't get COVID, but Kendra is one of the people who was working, and despite working the pandemic, actually did not get the virus. And she was working in the middle of some of the most challenging areas and put herself at tremendous risk. So I just want to thank you, Kendra, for all that you did throughout the pandemic to really be responsive to those needs during that time. Yeah. And so Kendra and I actually met 2.5 years ago. Kendra and I dated for 18 months. And last year, we decided to consciously uncouple. It was actually something that neither one of us had ever approached ending a relationship in that way. And it was a beautiful opportunity to shift when two people love and care about each other, but recognize that we both needed to go in different directions. It was a beautiful way to approach encouraging each other and supporting each other on our ongoing path, despite taking new directions. So I've had the benefit of watching Kendra over the last year and still being able to support her and encourage her. And more recently, even though we keep in contact through text and occasionally through conversations, more recently, Kendra reached out to me and she had a question for me. I could tell that she had been thinking about things and something was on her heart and mind. And she asked if she could reach out to me. So she did. And in that reaching out, we both care very deeply about transformation and being the best versions of ourselves. We're both really committed to that. And I will say that's one of the things that I think is beautiful about Kendra is that she is not only willing to face difficult things, physically through the pandemic and through her work, and in particular with kids and pediatrics, but she's also willing to take a look at it at herself and say, which can be one of the most challenging and challenging things that any of us can do, is to take a look at ourselves really deeply. So, Kendra, I'd like to pass it to you for you to say what was going on for you during that time for you to reach out to me and to want to connect.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I think way back in the day, I was like, podcast, no way. Like, you'll find some other people to do that, but it won't be me. Enjoy. So thanks for being open to doing this. So yeah, I'm a travel nurse, and so I was on another assignment and found another relationship ending. And at the time, I was looking at all the great people that I had been with and finding the common denominator with me. And I was looking at myself going, am I that broken that I just can't be in a relationship? And I watched all the people that I'd been with go on to be in relationships, and my friends were in relationships, and I just couldn't get there. I found myself getting to a point every time where I had to leave. And so I reached out to you and said, hey, can you chat for a second? I have a question. And the question I asked you was, am I that broken? Am I that hard to love? Is it okay that my life is just going to be me? Because I just can't be in a relationship. I find myself running every single time. And I was like, Beth, you know me, like, you know that I ran, like, you know that am I just that broken? And your response was, I think, something like, you're not hard to love. It's just hard to see how you receive love. And then you said that if I chose a life like that, that was fine, but not to let the past determine that. And that was like an aha moment. I was like, okay, so choice. And so then I started kind of focusing on that it was a choice. It wasn't that I was just broken, but it was a choice. If I chose to live alone, if I chose to believe that I was going to be alone and not with somebody. And so then that's just kind of how everything started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So something about that choice, it sounds like you hadn't necessarily considered that before, that you hadn't really, it sounds like you were believing this rhetoric in your mind that I'm broken and this is how it is, and this isn't just my story, this is just the fact, right?
This is my life.
And yeah.
This is the life that has become mine, and that's okay. And that's the kind of mindset I had is, I'll work, I'll do fun things, but when it comes to relationships, this is just my life. And I need to just accept that because that's just the way things are, that I'm just too broken. But but there's another side to this. Like there's the next step that happens. And I think one of the biggest things that, and I think I should mention this as well, is that, and I think I sent this in a text to you, was that it was when I came to you and asked you that question, I was coming to you like as a professional, as a friend, but it was the first time that I was able to come to you and not be in competition. And that was huge for me. I wasn't trying to compete with you with how much I know or how much you know or who was right or who was wrong. I was kind of just humbling myself and being like, I'm kind of at the bottom here. Like, is this really, give me another perspective. Is my brain working right? Like, is the way I'm thinking right? Or is there another side that I'm missing somehow? So it was coming to you as a professional and being like, hey, you know things. What do you see?
Yeah. So it sounds like the hearing that this is a choice, and this is how truth sometimes comes to us. It's like pre-verbal, but like some part of us, it like tings us. It goes, ooh, that, like you said a lot of things, but that one thing,
Right.
boom, that one phrase kind of sticks in my mind, choice. So it's almost like some part of us recognizes that as potentially being true before we can consciously get it, right? So it's like a little seed.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
you were still on assignment. So you finished your
Was.
assignment. So that's rattling around in there. And you've got some of these conversations rattling out. You have another relationship that's ending. You have this conversation with me where some things are kind of standing out. And then you head back home. You were up in New York and you start to head
I
back to
was.
North Carolina, right?
I was.
So
Yeah.
what happens next? Because often when we're ready for change or we're ready for a new direction, the information that we need will start rising up. As we start reaching for it, like some things start rising back, right? So then what kind of happens next? Because obviously it needs a few more deposits before it rings the bell.
Right. Yeah. So I think I reached out to you and said, I think I'm in a season of change. I'm kind of feeling it brewing. And I said I wanted to take one of your courses. And that again was like me kind of taking my hat off that I could be the sole I don't know, guidance of my life right now. Because I hadn't been guiding very well. I was I was kind of I was kind of repeating the same patterns and habits. So I was looking for an extra I don't know, I can't think of the word, but someone to kind of show me a different path. So I said, oh, let me take your course. But anyway, so I kind of had an idea in my head that there was change coming and that I was just going to be open to listening. And so I head down, get in the car, pack the Subaru, and head down to North Carolina. And serendipitous, I called a friend and met her for breakfast, who's a friend from elementary school. And then I think I reached out to you and said, hey, I want to take your course or something. And you reached back out and you were like, this is where I'm staying. And I was like, oh. And I was driving past there, stopped and said hello to you.
You were 10 minutes away when we connected. It was like, what are the
I was like,
chances in the
I was like,
whole
where are
world?
you? I know. I was like, where are you? I was like, oh, I think I'm like on that road passing there in like 20 minutes or something. Yeah. So anyway, and I think driving for some reason brings clarity. And so things just started kind of running through my head. Um, Ideas were just kind of flowing. I knew that I was in a soft space, like, and I should take advantage of that because I'm not often there. So I'm an ER nurse, so I remember you used to always say I had ER brain sometimes, and I can just shut things down and be matter of fact about things and be very far from my heart. But I think I knew that I was very close to my heart right now, and I should listen a little bit as to maybe what things or what messages were being sent. So anyway, some things started popping up. Specifically, I wrote down some things like, you want me to go into the thing now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thoughts that kind of started coming into my head were like, what if you had it wrong all these years? What if the messages that have been guiding my life, or the pillars, the mantras, the tenets that I believe in about my life, what if they were wrong? What if my child brain distorted them somehow? What if they weren't? What if it was like Whisper Down the Lane, where you start off saying alligator and it comes out asshole? You know, like, what if all these things that have been the things that I've leaned on about me for so long weren't right? And I I just kept thinking about, like, how would it be different if I didn't lean on memories of things that I couldn't put my finger on, but what if I was able to lean on the memories that were right here? Like, I've got a pretty good life. I've got great people in my life. I've got loving people in my life, but that's not how I define me most days. I define myself as being a loner, or being alone, or not able to be in a relationship, or not successful, or all these things that are not positive yet.
Mm-hmm.
What if I listen to the present in my life?
Yeah.
Could I do that? Yeah, so all those things were kind of running in my head, and I tried to like take some notes along the way. Um, and then I got back to my house in Southport, and started looking through old childhood things, and and I think things come to us when we're, like, I think we talked about this before, when you're ready to receive them. And I found something that a childhood piece from when I was like 12 or 13, and it had been in an attic all this time. I just never found it, and so it was an autobiography that I had written. So it was a very clear picture as to my 12 and 13-year-old brain. And do you want me to read some of the things?
Yeah, and I just want to say before you start, like, so
Yeah.
what we talked about is that, before the age of 8, almost all, like, we start to get in our brains very clearly, this is what I believe, this is who I am. So you said, I'm alone. So we start to have these scripts that we tell ourselves that comes from a very young age. And so what you're getting ready to read is that there are very formulated by 12 or 13, very formulated belief systems that are hardwired like inside
Right.
of us, right? So this is
Yeah.
how we see the world. This is not
Right.
just a passing moment, but it's a passing moment that shows a really clear image of how you at that age saw yourself and your life.
Right.
That's your lens.
Right. Well, yeah. And so, okay, can I read a couple?
Yeah.
Okay. So these were in my autobiography. There was 13 typed pages. And after I read all of it, the biggest thing that stood out was the fact that there wasn't a single positive thing that I wrote about myself. I couldn't find a single positive message that I said about Kendra being a cool kid. None. Um, so I wrote on the top of the paper my autobiography language. Um, I was cute, but to shut me up. I was a little devil, awful habit, mischievous mind, hair so thin it looked awful short. In kindergarten, my mom didn't have any pictures or remember anything significant. In elementary school, I was always in trouble. And then I think there was like a whole page and a half of all the things that I believed were the foundation of me always being in trouble. In fourth grade, I hated Mrs. Powell. She hated me as well. I haven't gotten any awards in my life. Just when I was skiing, when I was 3 years old. Um, my good memories of my life are from Holland. I used to live there. My bad memories are moving and leaving friends. I was planning to run away with my friend Lauren Cunningham. We planned it for 3 weeks to go anywhere. I don't laugh with my family because we were all just different. I can't show the real me. Last year, I thought of myself as a failure. I wasn't in clubs or gymnastics. I wrote, grades aren't important to me. I'm okay to flunk. I wrote, this year I'm a cheerleader, so I guess I'm a somebody instead of a nobody. I'm very self-conscious. I would change my build to be skinnier and have longer hair. There was another sentence in there that I didn't put in this, but there was a paragraph that I wrote that said, I wouldn't be around today if it weren't for Miss Stively, who was a teacher, I guess, at the school. And I talked about how I had thought of committing suicide, but she talked to me for a while and told me to come back and talk if I needed to again. I wrote, I never had a hero when I was young. I wrote, I won't marry or have children. I'm going to adopt a Korean girl. I don't think I can devote my whole life to one human. And then I wrote, my ending sentence was, I don't know what it would be like to be free to be me. So that was my 12, 13-year-old brain. And when I read this, I was literally like, what the fuck? Fuck did I just read? I just read my current mind. Like, I just read so many statements that I think today I think these statements. This isn't me today. This is my 12-year-old self. How is this fucking possible that my life is guided by a 12-year-old brain? And so, like, I think things started in New York and then 12-hour drive down. And I think I was supposed to find this. Like, I was supposed to find this autobiography this time. And I think we've talked about this before, that, like, had I found it, I wouldn't have been able to receive it. But I also think if I had found it before, my mindset would have been like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's my life. There is. That is my life. I don't get to be with anyone. And well, there you go. I'm 53 and now I fucked up. I can't really adopt a Korean girl now. I didn't even adopt anybody. Like, but yeah, that's me. And I would think about all the times I didn't get awards, or all the times that I was passed over for this or that, if I found this before. But I think I was meant to find it now because I was open to it. I was open to see it differently. And this is where that same question comes in, like, is this what I'm believing? And I think I even asked you, like, do you remember any of these statements? Or do you remember any of these mindsets from when we were together? And what was your answer?
Yes. Yes.
You knew these stories. You know these stories, which is crazy that my 12-year-old self has been at such a forefront of how my life has been, or how I let my 12-year-old self be in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
How is that possible? I am a highly educated, intelligent, intuitive person. I'm reflective. How is it possible that I let this happen? Or that this is how my life was?
Yeah. Thank
Mind
you for
blown.
sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing, because I think there are going to be some people who listen to this who are where you were before, where they think that they're absolutely in the driver's seat. None of that is true. And they don't have access to a 12 or 13-year-old journal that shows the fundamental beginnings of this sort of belief system, right?
Right.
You actually are somebody who has a tremendous appreciation for evidence, and this is part of why you're in the field that you're in, and why you have your PhD, is because you have a dissertation mindset. You have a very evidence and factual mindset. So the fact that you had this evidence in front of you, that you were receptive, that you had now this new evidence in front of you that said, ooh, oh my gosh, these are statements that I believe now. And you got curious about it because you had actual tangible information from that time frame,
right,
to say, wait, this isn't something that's me now. This is something that was me then. And then you asked yourself this question that I think is so important in this whole thing. I remember you saying, hey, I do hard things. I do difficult things all the time, right?
right.
So when you look at this is just another hard thing. You're like, oh,
Right.
But the first question is this true?
Right.
Is this true?
Right.
And it's a simple question, but it's so powerful. And asking ourselves, when you read something like that, and now you realize that this is what you're experiencing now, the question becomes, is this true?
Right. Well, and I think that is, and then the language of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the sentences that I wrote here is to shut me up. And that's in my autobiography that I wrote when I was 12. And the whole thing was that in the paragraph, I write that my parents put me on a blanket while they all ate dinner, while my family ate dinner, and with a radio. And I wrote in there to shut me up. And that language is so negative towards me, right? That there was something wrong with me. Instead of, I could have written it in a different scenario, in the sense that I was such a talkative baby, right? I was just always wanting to talk. But my parents wanted to keep me close. So they didn't put me in my bedroom. They put me on a blanket next to the kitchen table with a radio to soothe me. They didn't say that. I said, they put me on a blanket to shut me up. That says so much about how I was the baby. I don't really know, right? But the story I told myself in my head was very negative, that there was something wrong with me as a baby, as a 6-month-old baby. Wow, they're supposed to talk. They're supposed to babble. There wasn't anything wrong with me, but I'd already formulated in my head and come up with that language that was negative towards myself.
Right.
And I think, like, you mentioned a word the other day, that operating system.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I think
do you want to share it? Do you want to share about that? What that is?
Well, yeah. So I think when I was talking about it, like, I didn't know that I didn't know that language or that word, operating system. I was saying things like, to you, I was saying that, these are the pillars, or these are the foundation, or these are, the mantras in my head, those words. and you came out with the word operating system. And all of a sudden, like, it just made sense that I was creating this operating system with this language that formulated the rest of my life as to how I spoke about myself, how I felt about myself, that mainframe. And this kind of goes down another track, but when something rubs up against that operating system and wants me to do something in a different way than the way I know myself to be here, I shut down, right? And that explained everything to me as to why I have to be this person, or in the past I've had to be that person, because that's the way I wired myself from 12, is to shut me up, mischievous minds, awful habits, all by myself, no awards, run away, like all of these things are my operating system. And when things rub up against it, it short wires me. I don't know what to do. Oh, I don't know what to do. All I know is this. No matter point, I mean, I was in so many years of counseling and therapy, and I grew up with an alcoholic father, like so many things to try and understand things, but never consider that like this operating system is so grounded in the messages and the language I use for those messages.
Right.
And how that directs my life right now. Or directed, because I'm in a season of change.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it differently. Forward. But
yeah,
I think that go ahead.
Yeah, no, I believe that, because the first step to all of this is a recognition that it's even a thing, right? And so understanding that you had this operating system, and then it's like, okay, when I get really uncomfortable, when something rubs up against it that doesn't make sense given the coding that I have, then it's like I short circuit, right? And I say I because I think many of us can identify with what you're describing. So it's like there's this short circuit that then shuts down the system. It's almost like a virus comes through, because it's like, wait, here's what's going on right now, and here's my operating system, and this doesn't fit. And it permeates and shuts down. And then when you shut down, it's like you have this chance to just turn back on the computer with the virus, or do you defrag? Do you optimize the system? Do you get it taken care of? Do you reboot? But when you reboot, sometimes you have to upgrade in order to do a new operating system. It's like running, I think we talked about, like, it's like running like a Windows 1 when there's like a current version of Windows available. And it's like, we want it to do all the things that the new version does, but we haven't done the upgrade. And so it's confusing. It's like, why isn't this working?
Exactly. So my 12-year-old operating system, which was the things that I read in my autobiography, which I'd been repeating to everyone I knew, that this was me, was trying to navigate my life. So when a different thing showed up, when someone came in and said, spectacular, I'd file it. Thanks. Or if somebody said, oh, that's a really great idea. Like, oh, that's awesome. Your mind works really cool. Like, I file it away in another folder. Like, I didn't know how to process or receive or run any of this through, because it doesn't fit that operating system. So everything just kept storing. So when I came back to Southport and started going through things, like you said, I'm a researcher, right? So I have this idea in my head about the whole formulating my life by these 12-year-old things that I believed when I was 12. So I was like, well, wonder if there's some data in these boxes. Wonder if there's some stuff that I can find to debunk these beliefs. Because I think there's still that 12-year-old kid still in there a little bit that wants to go back to that old operating system. It's so comfortable. Like, I've been doing it for 40 some years. Like, It's just so easy to just
Mm-hmm.
run that system, right? It's like a stride when you're running. It's so easy to run your pace, and then you try and change it and you're like, oh, it's uncomfortable. I can do it, but it's uncomfortable. So anyway, I started looking through files of things that I had in the attic, and surprise, not surprise. Um, oh, so much. And so many people that had told me throughout the years that I was loved and that they thought I was fabulous, that I meant something to them, that I impacted their life, that I touched them, that they liked me, they wanted me in their world, that all these things that I denied that I had, all these things that my 12-year-old said we didn't get. We don't get those. We don't get that life. We get this
Mm-hmm.
life.
Right.
So I was debunking theory after theory that I had, and making file after file of, you know, little groupings that said, you know, won awards. You have. I mean, every kid I taught to read was an award, you know, like that was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, so yeah, before I was a nurse, I was a teacher for 20 years. And, you know, I was loved by those kids. I was loved by my teacher coworkers. I had a community. I wasn't alone. Like, I was in the Peace Corps. I wasn't alone. I had great friends in the Peace Corps, you know. I did good
Mm-hmm.
things. But for some reason, that 12-year-old operating system wouldn't let any of those things kind of move in. They just sat in these
Mm-hmm.
files, these unreadable files, kind of like I think like so it's kind of like when you open up a file, like I do this sometimes, I'll open up an old Excel file
Mm-hmm.
and it'll say this file cannot run on the current operating system, or current this file has not been updated. It could be corrupt. Are you sure you want to open it?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, should I open it? Do I need that data, or am I okay without it? And so a lot of times I'm like, what's the virus? It'll ruin my computer. Nah, I don't need it. And so I'll delete it, or not delete it, or just say I won't open it or whatever. Might come back and try and open it again later and see if it runs, but it usually doesn't. But so it's kind of like what I think all of like the operating system, all these positive things that I'm finding, I just put in files. And then every now and again I'd go through a season and I'd be like, oh, maybe I am
Mm-hmm.
loved. No, 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 I'm not loved. Maybe I can't. No, no, I can't. Like, maybe I am smart. No, no, I'm not smart. Like, no, no. So I kept like telling these files I can't open you. Like, because I kept running on this 12-year-old brain that
Yeah.
was in every cell of my body, like just permeated everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I'm just, I still am just like, what the fuck? Like, I just still can't believe that. And there's this freeing sense this morning that I was
Mm.
like a release. It's like a lifting. And I think I sent you a text earlier that said, had this little bit of an aha moment that was like, wait, this is how an adult manages
Mm.
their life. Really? Oh, this isn't that hard. Like, but my
Mm.
12-year-old operating system was struggling. Oh my God. Like, struggling to get through life. Like, struggling with just being sad all the time.
Yeah.
Struggling with, like, is life really this hard?
Right.
Struggling with why is it so hard? Like, why is living life so hard? Why is it so much work? Why can't I have what I want? Why don't I get that? Why
Mm-hmm.
don't I get a different life? Because I was
Yeah.
running into that 12, but then I look at my life and I'm like, I have a really good life. Like,
Yeah.
I have a really great life.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't see any of it
Right.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like once that old system drops away and you have this awareness of, is this true? And you say no. I've debunked this. I've looked at the data. I've looked at the past information, and now I'm looking at what's around me now. And I think you said yesterday, you said, I asked myself, is it true that I'm alone? Is there anybody around? You started going, I got this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. And you started adding it up and you're like, oh my gosh, no, it's not true. And
Right.
there is something really freeing, I think, about that moment where you can breathe and go, I get to make a different choice. I can I can start to feel like I would ask myself that question of what would it feel like to actually believe all the things that are true.
Yeah.
What
Right.
does that feel like? That feels good. Like that's a whole
Right.
other set of emotions that start flooding in that we can't
Right.
see, even if it's right there in front of us, is there's no evidence to it when it doesn't match up with what we
Right.
believed.
Right. Well, and I think when I wrote that autobiography, I think every bit of those things that I wrote, like, I was reaching out saying, hey, can someone give me a hand in guiding this life? Like,
Yes.
I'm clueless. Like, I don't know what to do with life right now. Can someone, like, just take my hand? Give me a little guidance here. But I didn't
Yes.
get it. But the 53-year-old me, I got you.
Hmm.
I got you. Right? I can look at that 12-year-old
Yeah.
girl and be like, honey, no, no, no. We don't believe that. I got you. I got
Hmm.
you. You know, it's normal to be
Yeah.
self-conscious about your body. It's okay. Like, let's find some better things to think about your body.
Yes.
And I think about all the things that I did with my students and things like that. And I'm like, I think I was trying to heal that 12-year-old
Yes.
girl along the way. Right.
Yeah.
I think I was always trying to make sure that they didn't feel this and they didn't experience that,
Maybe even
you
trying to
know?
get that 12-year-old's attention. In the meantime, you help thousands of other kids with that same point that you wish somebody would have come in and interjected themselves and said, hey, are you okay? Is there something
Yeah.
that we can do? Where that
Right.
didn't happen for you, you did that for thousands of other kids, but you were also trying to get your own attention.
Right. I think a counselor that I talked to one time said to me, you needed a Mrs. Cornwell in your life, or you needed a Miss Cornwell in your life.
Hmm.
I was like, I did.
Hmm.
And I think, Miss
Yes.
Dively tried to be that person for me when I went and talked to her about
Yes.
committing suicide. But like, yeah, I needed a Miss Cornwell in my life. And so I think that's
Hmm.
who I became in education. But that's a whole other
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So I have a couple of questions, and you may have some
yeah,
additional things you want to add here, but knowing this, I heard you say you want to do things different now. Like this is a new season. You're starting to feel the freedom. You're starting to breathe right now through the realization that this is a new time in your life. So for those people that are at the same juncture and they're like, oh gosh, this is a lot to look at, right? And you're right there at the precipice on the other side of it. What do you feel like it's like now what? What do you do from here?
right. And I think, it's just like anything new. There's this initial like excitement, like, ooh, this is fun. Like, ooh, I like this.
Hmm.
But it's easy right now, right? I haven't really gotten into the hard stuff. Um, so I think I'm realistic that it's gonna like be some work, but hold on, I gotta plug up. Um,
Hmm.
um, but I think that like I don't know, it's kind of I don't want to make it too big of a thing that it becomes all consuming,
Mm.
but I do want to keep it at the forefront of. So I'm kind of torn between being my data researcher self, which starts to like list
Mm.
everything and then
Hmm.
finding things to debunk it, and just letting things kind of open organically and
Hmm.
see how the new energy that I walk into the world with changes what I receive.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that um, the sad 12-year-old girl that's been kind of walking through the world is very different energy than this one that I have. Um, and I think that, how I approach my friends will be different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I'm going to try and be really in tune to the language that I use
Mm-hmm.
when I talk
Yeah.
about myself.
Right.
Because I have a feeling that, well, I know, so when I used to teach, I used to take my students' papers and like take out every eighth word and then give them back to them and have them fill it in because I could tell if
Mm.
my kids were plagiarizing or if their parent wrote the paper for them or something like that by the language they use. Because it's just like a fingerprint, right? You pick particular words when you speak, and they're yours, right? You have a very
Right.
signature way of speaking, um, and so I believe for me, I have a very signature way that I define myself, that I describe myself, um, that I believe about myself, and that needs to be updated, right? I need a
Mm-hmm.
big update. Um, and it needs to become more of like a permanent space for me in my
Mm-hmm.
brain and in my heart. And so I think that's going to be kind of the thing that I'm looking at is the language that I use
Yeah.
when, I mean, I think because historically it's been so uncomfortable for me to talk about myself because it didn't fall in line with my operating system. My 12-year-old that wrote that autobiography didn't know how to say, yeah, I got a PhD. Yeah, I worked really hard for it. Or, yeah, I went and lived in Myanmar for a year, worked for a company, developed a language program. It was so amazing. Didn't know how to say that, yeah, it was scary, but did it. Or, oh yeah, one summer I traveled to Vietnam and lived in orphanages up and down the country just with a card saying what date and time I needed to be back for my plane. Didn't speak the language, just did it. Like I didn't know how to I would just say, yeah, I'm really happy. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just really happy. Sometimes doing nothing. Or even talking about mistakes that I've made or, oh yeah, blew a ton of money on that. Probably shouldn't have, can't return it, but oh well, not the greatest
Yeah.
choice. But admitting things like that and being okay with it,
Right.
like, so the language that I use to talk about myself, I think is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And reframing those and maybe having some people hold me accountable for that. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe having like a little check-in with people and being like, hey, can I tell you about my month? Just to see how, like,
Great
what do
idea.
you hear? Like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you hear me say when I talk about so I cut my hair off, I don't know, a month ago or so, and I don't like it. Everyone else says it. Oh, it's cute, it's cute, and I'm like,
Looks
I
good.
don't like it. But everyone says that, and I'm like, oh, I don't like it. I don't like it. But I haven't gotten to maybe that's some small place to start, right? Like you pick a
Mm-hmm.
small thing and say that I can find ways to receive that other people say it looks good, even though I don't see it right now. Okay, thank you. Whew, thanks. But receiving it and not hitting no, I don't want to open that file. Right? I think I do that. I have done that historically. If people say things and I just put it in a file and say I can't open that. I'm sorry. And I do like I know I have told people that when they say kind things to me, I know I have even said those words. Ooh, thanks. It's so nice of you, Meg. I really can't hear that. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you just need to respect my boundaries. I just can't do that right now. Like, oh, my 12-year-old might not be able to hear it. Damn it, Kendra, you're
Yeah.
53 years old. If someone wants to tell you that they like you or that you're attractive or, you know, that your girlfriend finds you beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
grow up. Say thank you, receive it. Don't
Mm,
be the 12-year-old.
mm-hmm,
Expand, be open,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
enjoy, enjoy. It's okay, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, again, like what would it feel like to just receive all of those, the amount of beautiful moments that you have in your life, to be able to not just hear them but to receive them and embody them and
Yeah,
feel them, like that's how, like, I think that's wise to start with your language, because that's your operating system. That's how you'll
mhm,
start to filter. Like, once you receive it, it's uncomfortable. The second time you receive it, it's a little more comfortable. The third time you receive
right?
it,
Exactly.
when you're not in that stance of rejection but open-handed, right? and
Yeah,
and it does what it does to you, right? um I think it's also interesting that you chose you chose your haircut a month ago, and it's on your list. It's on the
I
list
know.
as with your short hair. So you actually, before you ever even found that journal, you did something that you weren't prepared for, but that you knew that you were
Look,
going to
I'm
walk
sweating.
into.
Look, my cheeks are all flushed. Whew.
Yeah,
They talk about me.
yeah.
I know the things. And this isn't the first time I've done this. I look back in my like photographs. I'm like, oh, did it that time. Oh, did it that time. Oh, this. I've cut it off so many times, and every time I fucking hated it. Why I did it again? I don't know. I think I saw. I
You
don't
were
know.
ready for it.
No, I think I saw what is an Instagram or something where they talked about like hair has memories or something, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let me cut it
Mm,
off. Let me cut
mm.
it all off. But I was buying somebody else's theory instead of like listening to
Yeah,
myself. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I don't know. But
Another
yeah,
thing, when we talk about now what, another thing that you said you were going to do is you wanted to let go, and you have some ceremonial types of ways that you want to let go. And I think that's for those people listening and they're like, now what?
yeah,
That language is important, that holding yourself accountable with that monthly check-in, that's a great idea, just because it says that I'm committed and I want other people's, like, trusted people's opinion. And then,
well, yeah,
that letting go.
kind of like when so I live by myself with my dog Ray Charles, and being, like if you want to, I don't know, work on a budget, or if you want to go on, you want to eat healthier or something like that, it's kind of hard because you don't really have anyone around to hold you accountable. And so there's been a couple times when, I've sent texts to my sister and been like, hey, every time if I didn't want to eat chocolate, like I wanted to just cut out chocolate, I would send her a text and say, hey, if I eat chocolate, I have to pay you $20 or something, because I needed somebody to hold me accountable. And I knew $20 would hold me accountable, but I didn't have anyone in the house to do it. And so I knew I'd eat chocolate. So it's kind of like that. Like, it's going to require me reaching out to someone and explaining it and being like, hey, this is where I'm at, and this is what I need from you. Need
Hmm.
something from someone. That's another one of my big things. Like, I don't I don't know. Like, my 11 and 12-year-old says we don't need anybody. Like, we
Hmm.
do it all on our own. It's okay. Don't want people in my life. Don't want to get married. Don't want to.
Hmm.
So reaching out to someone and being like, I think that's part of the next step as well, is
Hmm.
finding that person or those people and being like, hey, I'm going through a season of change. This is
Hmm.
kind of what I'm looking for. This is what it, and being kind of specific, like, this is what it sounds like when I'm just kind of blowing by things, when I'm just
Hmm.
letting that old operating system take over. And
Yes.
then, but also being kind to myself. Like, if I find
Hmm.
myself going back to that old comfort
Yeah.
zone,
Yeah.
because I don't think my old operating system knows really well how to be kind to myself. Like,
Hmm.
I get that, like, just even just now when we were talking about my hair, I got all flushed, and so that's also kind of watching the things in my body that I know maybe are a little bit uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And maybe that's also a signal that there's maybe a dialogue in my head that I'm not paying attention to.
Hmm.
So when I talked about, like, my hair, and then you said it looks nice. I could feel my face getting like hot. And so
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a dialogue in there that
Mm-hmm.
says like, you're not attractive, your hair's thin, like it's not good short, you don't look good. Like I know that even though I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying it, it's there. So I
Right.
think, so yeah, the language, reaching out to someone and watching how like my body reacts to certain things. I
Yes.
think that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah. It all shifts the meter. It all shifts the dialogue. And I think you're wise to like not try to fire hose it and
Yeah.
instead,
Oh, I'm sure I will
taking your
try it someday.
time. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think your body, you're one of those people that will pay attention to how much you can take, right? Like the
Yeah.
pace of it. So,
But I think that, that whole like, I'm not that, reminding myself that I am not that 12-year-old little girl, that I'm not like, I got this. There's a, there's a, my favorite artist, Joy Olodokin.
mhm.
There's a couple songs that she sings, and I'm like, hell yeah, fuck yeah, you got that. Um, and one of her songs is I Did It the Hard Way. I did it the hard way, totally. And then another one is oh, what is it? Wild Enough to Chase It.
Wild enough to
Wild
chase
Enough
it. What
to
a great
Chase It.
title.
I know. Um, and so, and I'm like, maybe I need to write that on a card or something and put it on my refrigerator for when my, 12-year-old operating system comes back in. That, no, you're a smart person. We're good adults. Like,
Yeah.
you have a different way of thinking than your 12-year-old self. Like, back to that thing that started this whole thing. And what if the message was wrong?
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, some of the things were true. Like some of the things that I wrote in there, you know, growing up wasn't that easy. I had an alcoholic father and whatnot, but those messages aren't true today, you know, and so they shouldn't
Yeah.
be the framework of my operating system. They
Right.
shouldn't be the framework of how I see myself and how I walk through the world. Because that operating system is really bad, really, really sad all the time. And I'm not a sad person.
That 12-year-old inside you gets to come along in this wild ride with the new you.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can stay in
Cool.
the files and whatnot, but she's not driving anymore.
That's right. That's right. As we kind of wrap up, I'd be interested in anything that you want to end with, but I do want to ask one last question of what inside you made you want to share this, allow other people to hear what you've experienced. You could have just had this realization and not shared it with other, but there's something in you that wants to share this.
Um, I think I was just so floored by it all. Like,
Mhm.
I consider myself like a pretty learned, like intelligent, like well counseled, well therapyized. I don't know. Well, I've been to a lot of therapy. Like I've been
Mhm.
through a lot, and it's just such an aha moment. Like it literally was like, what the fuck? I like hoodwinked. It was just. I think I was so shocked that I was like, there's got to be other people out there. There's
Mhm.
got to be other people out there. And I think it just seemed so transformative for me. And so instantly eye opening that
Mhm.
my 12-year-old was still telling me about me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, I always said no to podcasts, but then I was like, well, I got to be open. I want to be open. I want to be
Yeah.
open to whatever the universe presents presents me with, you know? I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that about you. Like that's part of your, I think you're like me in that when we learn something that is so transformative to ourselves, we want to share it with others because we want
Yeah.
for others to benefit from whatever morsel of our story can resonate with them and positively impact their life.
Yeah. And I think that I kept seeing how many spaces that 12-year-old mind was occupying
Hmm.
with how I navigated every day.
Hmm.
And I think that it was adding, like, once I figured it out, like, literally instantly, I was like, oh, well, my grown adult brain isn't defeated by that. My
Hmm.
12-year-old might be defeated by that experience I had today, but my 53-year-old, like, I got you. Right. And it was just so
Yeah.
instantaneous that, like, yeah, it was just so surprising that,
Yeah.
yeah, somebody else can, like, all of a sudden find that experience and be like, oh, huh, wonder if I have a brain that's maybe even my operating system
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
needs to be updated or upgraded.
Yeah.
Might help somebody.
Yeah. I think it will. Thank you
And I think
for coming
hashing it
on
out
here
with
and
you
sharing.
is, yeah, like hashing it out with you, I think has also been, you offer a lot of insight and you give me very honest feedback and you bring different language,
Mm.
which helps me formulate a different pathway as well,
Yeah.
which I think is always good. Yeah. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to share that you didn't get to share before we
No,
wrap up? Okay.
no,
Thank you
no,
so
nothing.
much for coming on here and being willing to share your story because I do think that there are going to be other people that identify with this. And it can be very liberating to see yourself in somebody else before you're ready to see yourself. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
appreciate your willingness to come on here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, I always like to thank Micah McKenzie for the incredible cover art. So thank you, Micah, for your contributions to the show. And until next time, friends, peace, love, and light.